everyone. Good afternoon. I think we should give another round of applause to Pray God Jaffet for that wonderful presentation. And there's a famous saying that goes, to know where we're going, we need to know where we've come from. And I think he's done a great job in highlighting that. So as we go on to the next session, I would like to welcome on stage my distinguished panelists, starting with Fatma Fernandez. Could you make your way to the stage? Fatma Fernandez is a serial entrepreneur from Tanzania. She's the founder of Queenswood Group Limited, and she's passionate about inclusive economic growth with a focus on agriculture, health, and women. Our second speaker is Enock Musinguzi. He's a development practitioner and is the country director for GAIN. He draws on a wide experience from working with international development agencies in the area of nutrition. And last but not least, John Dumelo. John Dumelo is a Ghanaian actor and farmer, and he's also an aspiring member of parliament. He farms maize, cattle, goats, fish, pigs, and the list goes on. Now, we've seen from Pray God Jaffet's presentation, and he highlighted the importance of data. But before we get started into this panel, I would just like to bring a few statistics. And before I do that, I would like to ask how many of you in here use a smartphone? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, I think that's nearly 90% of the room. And how many of you in here know how to code? Hey, ladies, okay, great, okay. So now the average African farmer is 60 years old. And 60% of Africa's population is the youth, so under the age of 24. But globally, only 0.5% of the population knows how to code. And with that, I would like to hear from the panelists in any order, just to get a reaction from both those statistics as well as Pray God Jaffet's presentation. I'll start off with you, Fatma.
As we've learned from Pray God's presentation, you'd notice that yes, we're moving in the right direction, but we're not moving fast enough. So what is needed, I believe, is bridging that gap, getting the right business models that would incentivize the youth to understand that agriculture is not just for that poor man or woman in the village, but it is a business. And my take is, why don't we look at farmers as customers? Why are we looking at farmers as those who we need to help? Because if you, as a youth, like for me, I'm running an ICT farm here in Tanzania, my take is, I'm looking at a farmer, this is someone who will need my service, and they would gladly pay for it. They afford to buy the seeds. So currently we have a platform that is verifying seeds, and this seed is improved seed. It costs shillings 10,000 for the farmer to buy this seed, and they buy it. And currently we have around 80,000 farmers in that platform. So if you take it that this farmer is your customer, you'll definitely develop platforms or look at data or even AI, in the sense that I would be able then to sell a product to this farmer and they would buy it.
Great. I'm a smallholder farmer, but my list is not as impressive as his. I'm only a smallholder farmer of some few cows, not goats and all that long list. So I would like to really associate with what Pregol said, that most of the challenges he gave here are challenges we face as smallholder farmers all over the continent. You can talk about different countries, different contexts, but almost there is that line cutting through, and those challenges are a constant. And I think there is a very big policy um, gap in terms of what we have as policies promoting, even those statistics, because some of our policies you find them uh, targeting just 5% of commercial farmers in these countries, leaving behind, and we are in the era of leaving nobody behind, but leaving behind 90% of the smallholder farmers. For instance, I think there is an increasing, as people who are supposed to make policies for us, being into business as well. And so in many countries, you will find this, what is now called as state capture, where policies are not meant for the local 95% of the smallholder farmers. But the business people are the same people who are into policy. So I think we'll have to find a way to really make policy work for us. And for that to happen, we'll have to be direct and look at what is the farmer, like he mentioned, what does she want, what does he want, how can we make policy that is aligned to that person. The second is on the youth. And Pregod also touched on this very well. But for the youth to really get engaged in this agriculture, we'll have to make it, quote unquote, sexy. And what the sexiness of the agriculture will come out of the fourth industrial revolution, using gadgets. This person who's come out of university, if you tell them to go and farm the way his or her parents farmed, they are not going to get engaged. So I think in our policy discussion and making sure that we want to make an inclusive agriculture for Africans, we have to, yes, play to the current modes and apps and stuff to make real agriculture impressive for the young generation. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your compliments, but I'm also a very small farmer. Um, I started my farm 5 years ago. But what I noticed with farming, especially what my brother said in his presentation, was a lot of the youth are shying away from farming. I think the same trend will be probably still here in Tanzania, where a lot of the farmers are above 60 years. And so I asked myself, okay, so what happens in the next 10 or 20 years? Who are those going to farm for us? And we live in a country, or we are still in a continent where we import almost everything, which is bad. And so that is one of the reasons why I entered into farming, to make it, like he said, look sexy, to motivate a lot of the youth to get into agriculture. And the truth is, look, ever since I got into agriculture, I've realized that it can create a lot of employment. The first one. The second one is, of course, it can improve Ghana's economy, and in fact, it can improve Africa's economy. The other thing we also need to look at is we need to be able to trade within ourselves. I mean, it would be nice if Tanzania trades with Ghana, it would be nice if Nigeria trades with Kenya, and so on and so forth. I think the last time I was reading something about Kenya, where they imported maize from Mexico, and I was like, okay, it didn't, for lack of a better expression, it didn't really make sense to me why Kenya would probably import maize from Mexico whilst Tanzania is here, or even whilst Ghana is there. And so that's one of the things we should be able to look at, to be able to look at African countries being able to trade within themselves so that agriculture can be great again.
Thank you, panelists. So, looking at farmers as businesses, addressing policy issues, as well as realizing trade. And I think with the recent African Free Continental Trade Agreement that has been signed by several African countries, this is something that is starting to get realized. So I would now like to throw a question at you, Fatma, in terms of what are some of the opportunities that through your organization, Queenswood, that you have started to embark on to make, to drive entrepreneurship among youth?
Thank you. In the sector of agriculture, we're looking at extension services. These are services that you don't need much, as he mentioned. We're trying to make it sexy for the youth to come on board. We're giving them phones, we're giving them incentives whereby at the end of the day, if anything that they sell to the farmers, they get a percentage. Here we're looking at insurance, voucher systems. So we're looking at agriculture as a sector. And in Tanzania, we've seen that a lot of the issues that he mentioned as challenges to the farmer, education, risks, and certainty. It's a farmer is a cry away from disaster if it doesn't rain. Can you imagine that? That in this day and age, farmers still cry for the fact that they cannot get the produce. It's not something new. Most of the farmers that call us, last season we had a very bad season because it didn't rain. And this is not from a technology perspective, technology company, this is not something we want to hear. So we're trying to engage the youth to create platforms that would help with irrigation, for example, like what he's doing with hydroponics. We're doing it with solar systems and providing drip irrigation for farmers in Morogoro. And we've tested it and it's working. And we're giving it at $100 when in the market, this particular platform or service would be going for up to $2,000, $3,000. So we're trying to make it accessible to these farmers and using the youth as a pillar. As he mentioned, 10 million out of school. All of them they're asking for jobs. We're telling them we're not going to give you a job. We're going to give you a commission. Go out there and sell and to be able to get the money to be successful.
Thank you, Fatma. Now to you, John, which I think leads very well to what Fatma has said. What about the case of farmers? I'm sure you were not there in the before computer era. So how are farmers starting to engage with, farming in the digital era?
Thank you. I think for me, when she was making a submission, something came to mind. I was like, if it was Ghana, they'll probably say the reason why the rates didn't come was because of witchcraft or something like that. So there's a thin line between witchcraft and technology, or witchcraft and agriculture. But the truth is that it's not really about witchcraft. It's about technology. It's about improving the technology for us to be able to improve yield. And in Ghana, I think what is happening is that most of the farmers these days are incorporating technology into their farming experience. You have farmers that now are able to text when they have a problem. You have farmers now that are able to use drone technology. You have farmers that are using satellite technology. You have farmers who literally control their farms in the comfort of their homes or even on their phones. And so I think by and large, if we want to be able to compete with the West, we have to be able to shift away from this cutlass and hoe approach to a more mechanized approach so that we'll be able to compete with the West. We'll be able to ensure that we can sustain ourselves in terms of agriculture, in terms of improving agriculture. And also, we should be able to know that we can feed ourselves and then export the surplus. I mean, if you come to West Africa, Ghana, our neighbors are Burkina Faso on the north, and at a certain point in time, we import tomatoes from the north into Ghana, which to some extent it doesn't it doesn't really add up because at also a certain point, we also export our tomatoes to Burkina Faso. And so if we're able to harness technology very well, we'll be able to, of course, be self-sufficient in terms of producing tomatoes. And then, as a matter of fact, export. As a country, Ghana, we still import tomato puree. I don't know if it's the same in Tanzania as well. Yet we still produce a lot of tomatoes, and so that doesn't add up. And so if we improve technology, I feel and I know that we can improve yield, which would, which would mean that we have to also build the infrastructure to go alongside with the improvement of yield, so that we can stop importing some of these things and create a lot of employment and earn a lot of foreign exchange.
Thank you, John. I think that's a very valid point, which leads me on to Enock. As we know, the agriculture sector is multi-sectorial in nature. It involves working with different agents, from livestock, fisheries, to nutrition. And I would like you, Enock, to highlight some of the innovative approaches that you're implementing under GAIN, specifically in the area of nutrition.
Thank you. GAIN is an organization working on nutrition. We are based in Geneva, and we are happily and proudly in Tanzania. We started working in Tanzania around 2011. We've worked basically on three main objectives: making accessibility of nutritious foods very easy for the local person, making it desirable, because its access is not necessarily its desirability, so creating that demand, but also working with the government and all the other players we talked about, but stakeholder platforms, to really create enabling environment that would allow our good farmers here, and those that help farmers, to do what they're supposed to do for the food to be available for the African. And so we've sitting between agriculture and nutrition is something very important called diet. And for GAIN, that diet is our center of focus. And we are focusing on diet because of what briefly I would like to describe as a context. Globally, 6 out of 11 global health risks, including in Tanzania, are due to poor dietary quality. 6 out, meaning more than 50% of things that affect our health is due to what we eat. And we know we can now say without any fear of contradiction that diet is a predictor of health. Now, if that is true, let's look at the characteristics of the diet that we have today. High in carbohydrates, high in sugar, high in fat, saturated fat, high in salt. But we know also our diet is low in fruits and vegetables. In fact, very expensive, even where they are available. Study was taken, 52% of households, if they were to consume 5 servings of fruit, would be just on fruits. So it's unaffordable. Now, you can go on and on, but what does this diet lead to? We see all emerging health complications around non-communicable diseases. Everybody has heard about cancer, has heard about cardiovascular diseases, has heard about respiratory infections, has heard about so many things. They have affected us in one way or the other. So it's no longer something that we hear about, something that happens in well-to-do families. It's very close to us. And the diet is a very strong predictor of what we see. And because of that context, it therefore goes without saying that innovations are needed for us to do something about this food. It can't be just feeding our stomachs, but we have to nourish. So the narrative is changing from feeding the world to nourishing the world, because we are saying we are feeding ourselves with the wrong foods, resulting into those health complications. Now, as again working with Sahara Ventures, and many other stakeholders in Tanzania, we are coming out with innovations to change the food design, to make sure that this food that the farmers is helping, once this food is processed, it is low in carbohydrates, we reduce the sugar content, we reduce the saturated fat, so that we design something healthier. We're looking at connectivity. Instead of, we've seen that convenience and price are the two important drivers of what we choose to eat. So you have to make market connectivity and convenience in your innovations very key components that you're looking at. And those are some of the innovations we are promoting by working with many partners here to surface some of those. There is Uber food, for instance. You've heard about this? That apart from calling Uber for taking you from point A to point B, there is actually, you can call, and this is happening in some of the countries. So we're talking about fourth industrial revolution. The question is, how do we make sure that the food that is being brought to even the remotest of the village is healthy, is the healthy option, it's affordable, and this all requires all of us. And of course, you cannot forget innovations in post-harvest losses. What probably Pregol, I think he showed, almost 50% of the food we harvest gets lost from the farm, whether on the farm, but mostly post-harvest losses. So the question is, how do we come up with innovations to reduce this? Because without doing anything, our food will almost more than double without including productivity by just reducing those losses. So these are just a few of the innovations we are involved in to make sure that food is more available and is healthier for our population in order for them, this useful population we're talking about, to enjoy a healthy lifestyle.
Thank you, Enock. And now I would also like for you guys to share some of the lessons learned from your professions before I leave the floor open for questions to our participants. So lessons learned. Okay, so for example, again, lessons learned in implementing some of these initiatives. Same with Fatma. And for your case, John, it could also be recommendations. Yeah.
Lesson learned. Well, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot you fail. That's something that a lot of us, don't know. Everyone thinks, oh, you're successful. You've been in business for 5 years, and so on and so forth. But the main lesson that we've learned in implementing technology for farmers is to listen to the farmer, listen to their needs. Don't just think that, wow, you know AI or you know how to operate all the systems and you think that they need that. So what we have done now is we've derived 2 solutions that are need specific to the farmer. The Evora System, which is a subsidy platform that subsidizes seeds, inputs, and fertilizers. And this is given to farmers, and they pay using mobile money when they do sell after they've already harvested. So this is something that a farmer needs. They need to get that micro lending sort of, we give them the money, we give the subsidy at a lower price. For example, if the seed is 5,000 shillings, we ask them to pay 2,000, and then you buy the seed, and after you pay the remaining 2,000. And with regards to eHakiki, what we've done is, and this is a verification platform, we learned that a lot of the farmers are complaining about fake seeds and fake fertilizers. And so we developed a system specifically for them and for their needs. And this is what is needed. We need innovations that are need specific. for the farmers and even for companies and so on and so forth. So those are some of the lessons that we learned.
Enoch, one lesson learned.
Um, I'll give, in order for the audience to participate, I would like to give my lessons in terms of questions so that we are relevant. But it's based on what we've seen as well. One, there is this statistic that 250 million children by 2030 will be obese. And they will be obese because of the diet or what we are feeding them on. So the question is, what do we do in terms of regulation to prevent these 250 million? Because that is health. That's the first one. We have better access, as he said, to digital platforms. But what do we do with those digital platforms? Today, if somebody dropped their nudes, would have millions of likes and followers. But if Play Gold drops a very educative whatever about improving farming, probably very few. So the question is, how do we change this to make sure that people are actually paying attention to things that matter to our survival? Innovations. There are so many innovations coming out of universities and these accelerators and what, but very few getting to commercialization. Again, it comes to the question of prioritization. How do we make sure that our good innovations come out of universities and these bunny houses of this world actually get commercialized and we apply these solutions? That's a challenge also to you. As I finalize, financing. Most of the small and medium enterprises, finance is not the only challenge, but it's a very big challenge. And I was very pleased in the morning. I had a number of presentations about financing small and medium enterprises, but still, it is a drop in the ocean. So how do we avail? And yet, small and medium enterprises are the key drivers of food, at least in the continent we are talking about. So how do we get some of those solutions, including financing, to the people? How do we put money where our mouth is? Lastly, I know I'm taking a lot of your time, is on indicators. We are in the era of many people contributing towards feeding this world, including private sector. But if you go to the nutrition, because you said agriculture and nutrition, there are no indicators that track, no apps that track the contribution of private sector towards their contribution towards nutrition. That means we cannot really quantify what is it they are contributing, either positively or negatively. And yet, the 250 million children we talked about, the food is coming from the private sector. So private sector can do good and bad. How do we develop the right indicators to track that positive one? Because it's the only way we are going to ensure our health. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think for me, the lessons I've learned most is about cutting costs. For example, the maize farm that I have, it's about 100 acres. What happened is, when normally we are planting, I employ about 20 or 30 people to do the planting, which of course comes at a cost. But when I started using the machines, like the planters, I realized that I've cut my cost down by about 30 or 40%. And so for that, technology has helped. The other one was exactly a week ago, I was planning to buy some farmland, and I needed to know the size of the land. The surveyor wanted to charge me $1,000 to be able to map out the land and know the exact size. And I was like, okay, no problem. I called a friend of mine who has a drone, and for $100, he He was able to come to the farm to fly the drone and to know the exact size of the land, because with the drone you can know, you can measure the distance that the drone has flown, and then you use that to calculate the acreage. And so these are two examples of which technology has helped me particularly, not just me, but other people as well. You also have my friends in Ghana who are doing greenhouse farming, which of course is increasing a lot of yield in terms of cucumber, in terms of tomatoes, and so on and so forth. So I think with the introduction of technology in Africa, in Africa, it's number one, is going to increase a lot of yield, which we are looking for, based on certain statistics that we have. We will be importing about $110 billion worth of agriculture produced by 2025, which is in 6 years. And so if we don't start embracing new technology that is going to enhance productivity and increase in yield, I don't think that we'll be able to cash in on that 110 billion that is coming in by 2025.
Thank you. So that's embracing technology to increase productivity, enhance diets, as well as tracking of indicators. I'd like to leave the floor open for, 2 questions.
We have about 5 minutes left.
All right. So, could we please pass the mic, or are we relying on this one?
I'll pass the mic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 crazy ideas, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. Why is it that we have to transport those fruits and vegetables from the countryside? We know Africa's got lots of land, but Africa is also the fastest urbanizing continent on the planet. Why is it that we shouldn't farm vegetables and fruits right in our cities here in Dar es Salaam and leave that land to do something else, like capture carbon, capture water that we will need in the next 50 to 100 years to feed our cities? So is it viable? Is it possible to even think about what Pregod was mentioning, that you farm your tomatoes and your spinach and everything in your backyard and your parking lot on the flat roofs of your houses that we see in very many African cities? Maybe that's a crazy idea. And here's an answer to your question about 250 million obese African children. We're also privileging cars in our cities. So why not pedestrianize more and more of our cities so that people walk and bike to where they need to? Dar es Salaam is a very flat city, mostly. I know it's hot and everything else, but you plant more trees, right? So that your pedestrians' walkways are nicely shaded. So that's another way of dealing with obesity, adult onset diabetes, and all these kinds of things. Can we imagine a world like that, or is it just Aiden being completely crazy? Thanks.
Can we note the question and then we'll answer them at once? Any other question? Comment?
Hello, everyone. So we have heard a lot about youth engagement in agriculture. Is it the reality that, the youth who are not right now engaging in agriculture can get to agriculture? That is first. The second one is, we've talked a lot about agriculture, but what about financing? How can we leverage fourth industrial revolution in terms of empowering farmer and financing them? Thank you.
Thank you so much. One last one. All right.
Hi. I've heard a lot of comments around trying to make agriculture sexy for the youth, because the youth is the future generation, and if anybody's going to be engaging in agriculture, it will be the people who are potentially going to be here 50, 70 years from now. I'm just curious to understand why isn't agriculture sexy for the youth? And I'd love to just hear from the panel, either from your experience, from your interactions with the youth. I really want to know why. Why don't we want to engage in this? Thank you.
All right. Can we take those 3?
Yeah, I'd like to open the floor to the panelists, and you can choose to tackle any of them. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'll tackle 2. The thing about agriculture not being sexy for the youth. I think agriculture is sexy, but what happens is that the youth these days don't have a lot of patience when it comes to making money. I think that they're looking for quick money. I think they're looking for something that they know that, look, at the end of the month, they're going to get something out of. So it's better for them to get a job at the office so that at the end of the month, they know they are getting X amount. But with agriculture, I mean, you're looking at 3 or 4 months before you get returns. And even that one is probably risky. And so that's how come the youth are really not engaging in agriculture. But then again, when you come to Ghana, you have the various governments doing something called the Youth in Agriculture program, where they are engaging a lot of youth, giving them a lot of seeds, a lot of, in fact, physical seeds and even seed capital to be able to start farms. And so that has actually attracted a lot of youth into agriculture. And so for me, I would say again that in Ghana, agriculture is becoming sexier, and I hope that, and I know that, of course, it's going to catch on in other parts of Africa. Let me attempt to answer his question about us growing vegetables and stuff in the cities. Yes, it comes to vertical farming where we can use that a lot in the cities. But the question is, can we produce enough to be able to feed the demands in the cities? I mean, of course, if you take a city like Tanzania, I'm sure every single day so many tomatoes are used, or so many cucumbers are used, or so many cabbage is used. But can vertical farming, in fact, vertical farming can actually replace that. But can we produce that in volumes? And so that's the question. And so I think for now, maybe by and large, vertical farming it's going to be popular in the cities, so that we can now supply to the various restaurants and homes that need all these ones. But now I think it's more about volumes rather than it being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that is very ably tackled on growing food in cities. But like he rightly said, Dar es Salaam is about to become a mega city of 10 million inhabitants. I don't know how many vertical walls you would need to sustainably feed these on vegetables. So we'll need those solutions in addition to sustainably using the land, our hinterlands and those far-off places. Of course, in a way, I think environmental sustainability is becoming increasingly critical, and so we'll have to look at, are we using our marginal lands? But yeah, I think 60% of that arable land we cannot all leave it to animals. I still believe some of it can be used for food to feed our growing population. In terms of financing farmers, I think a number of people probably, yeah, there are better people here qualified to talk about that. But as again, we are also coming up with agricultural nutrition financing. If what you're dealing in is nutritious, we are putting together something that we can be used as an instrument for financing your business to go to scale. Why isn't agriculture sexy? I think for me, in addition to what the great answer given already, it's about goal misalignment, goals in life. We all went to school expecting white-collar jobs, right? That is not anywhere close to tackling soil every single day, right? So if you expected a white-collar job and now there is even a better paying job, but you didn't expect to work somewhere there are dirty clothes and stuff. So I think it will be a matter of mindset change, really bringing youth to appreciate the value of agriculture, what you get out of it, not necessarily how you look while you're still working. That sexiness will be changed within their minds.
The last one.
Thank you. I'd say, well, if you saw my husband, he's sexy and he's a farmer. So, and he's young. The point that I'm trying to make is this. It's all about priorities. And I think most of us, when we go to school, all we want, or all we've been told, it's all about the brainwash that we've been getting from the schools, that at the end of the day, you need a paying job. And it doesn't matter if you're a farmer, for me, I would say for his example, he studied in Australia, he did IT, and he came back and he's doing rice farming. And because of the knowledge that you got from school, if you can link that knowledge to farming, then I can assure you, you'd be a successful farmer. Look at John here. With regards to farming, with regards to financing farmers, there are several funding prospects that are there. For example, TPB, Tanzania Postal Bank, have been given grants by AGRA worth of $1.5 billion. And this is already there. It's all about finding that knowledge. Yes, farmers don't have that knowledge. And this is where bridging the gap comes in. Us, the youth, the guys who are 10 million coming out of schools, we're the ones who can get and become a bridge towards the farmers. And that's what we're trying to do with regards to subsidizing and also micro lending using mobile money and so on and so forth. So prospects and opportunities are there. It's all about just pinpointing and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
Sorry, moderator, just light one on physical activity. Physical activity, sir, your question is very valid. It's not only a diet, it's also how active you are. And so that's increasingly getting momentum. I see in many of our cities some activists coming up to push our governments to, in addition to just building roads for cars, to have pedestrian, to have cyclist lanes, to have stuff like that. I think we are still at early stage, but there is that push from a number of centers, and I think we will see it. It may not happen for me and you, but hopefully it does. But I think it's moving toward that direction.
Actually, it's there because nowadays all the roads are being built. They have the pedestrian side, so it's something that's already
that's happening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fatma, Enock, and John, and to all of you. A round of applause for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. You can have a seat. Sorry, due to time, we sort of have to rush a bit, but we really appreciated the discussion.